This week's best MMA bets, we're talking UFC 317. I'm going to give you guys my lock of the week, my most confident picks on the card. We'll talk favorite underdogs, Degen props of the night, and then we'll finish it out with the parlays. So make sure you guys smash the like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe, turn the post notifications on, and make sure you share the video too. Now, last week, fantastic. Lock City parlay hits again. We come through with Mitabek Orabai and Tagir Ulanbekov. Listen, the lock has been plus money. It's always plus money. We go savage underdog, and whether it's a two-leg parlay or a straight underdog money line, we've been on fire, all right? Unbeaten on the past 4 cards, but 3-0 in the month of June with the plus money coming through each and every time. I'm excited as hell for this one. All right, I'm cooking up another Lock City parlay. It's a special 2-leg. It's one that's close to my heart, which includes 2 of my favorite fighters on the roster right now. So without further ado, the lock of the week. 2-leg Lock City parlay. We're going Ilia Topuria at the top, and we're going with Joshua Van to take it home. I'm so excited. As I'm talking about this, I feel like a giddy kid right now because I think we have a legit pathway for both. Obviously, Topuria, much wider favorite than Joshua Van, but both are favorites. Van slight at -120 over Royval in the biggest fight of his life. Now, a big key into why I love both of them, boxing combinations. All right, in this new era of the game, you're seeing certain strikers with the ability to string combinations together. It's not just the 1, 2, and 3, it's the 4, 5, and 6. An ability to not just headhunt, but also mix in dynamic body shots. Both Topuria and Van do this extremely well. Now, I'll talk about each of them individually, but first things first, I'll read off the line. You're looking at plus 126, all right? So we got a nice plus money tag. It's underdog savage mode again, and it's a 2-leg where both of the legs are on the pay-per-view. So UFC 317, watch it with me. I'll be live for the whole card. It's going to be a heater, okay? I'm excited. Now, let's talk about the Van Royval matchup. If you haven't tuned in to my content since this fight was announced, I've been on Team Van. I'm a Joshua Van's witness. I was still hyping him up after the Charles Johnson fight, and I think everybody misread it. They thought, oh, he's overrated after that one. I thought he was actually starting to show some good looks to Johnson, but Charles Johnson, dangerous puncher, good kickboxing skills, crafty veteran, crazy length, caught him with the perfect uppercut. And people then are using that argument to sell Royval to you. Let me tell you why I disagree with that take. If you put boxing gloves on Royval and Johnson, Charles Johnson will beat him. In pure hands fighting, okay, the side of Johnson is much more live for a one-punch KO against somebody like a Joshua Van as opposed to Royval. Now, you can say, oh, well, look at Royval kneeing Matthias Nicolau. Dog, it's Matthias Nicolau, okay? He's not Joshua Van. Van's a relentless prospect. He's showing improvement each and every time we see him. At 23 years old, he's on the title trek because the winner of this fight is probably next in line for the flyweight belt, which happens to be the fight right after in the co-main event. I think Van's key boxing combinations are an ultimate difference maker. And there is a big red flag that I think people may be overlooking with Royval is the fact that he had a bad concussion not long ago, pulling out of, his recent fight. And I think that besides the concussion, because that's not my key selling point, I think the stylistic matchup of a man in Joshua Van with an ability to box at a really good rate. And it's not like he can't check kicks. It's not like he can't stop takedowns. He's not one-dimensional. He's multifaceted, but the boxing is his specialty. And I do believe a pressure-based combination punching boxer with high-level knowledge of takedown defense and defense against kicks can do extremely well. Now, I expect Royval to try to get a little wild. All right, clinch strikes, elbows in close range, because Van is going to force this fight into more so of the phone booth. He's going to get it into that close in the mid-range. Now, it's the fire zone for both of them from there. From distance, obviously, Royval with the length advantage. He will have an ability to throw teeps on the outside, and sure, he can throw some straight punches, but watch Brandon Royval and tell me, is he a snapping jabber? Does he have a dynamic straight right? Not really. Is he this amazing kicker? Not really. He's got nasty body kicks. He can rip shots. But I think the chaos factor of Brandon Royval is what has always made him so dangerous. But I believe chaotic striking against a fighter like Joshua Van, who's extremely skillful with the boxing attack, who has precise punching ability and rips it to the body and head nicely, is going to get him hit a lot. I expect Royval to try and grapple. Joshua Van has a frame that is incredibly difficult to dominate on the ground. Now, could Royval potentially land a takedown? Sure, but I see Van scrambling, bouncing right back up to the feet. His get-up game seems to be really good. On top of that, I have a hard time seeing Royval matching the boxing from that mid and close range. I see Van is better. Not saying Royval won't land shots and not saying Van is just going to destroy him like he did Bruno Silva, but there is a possibility of Van landing some thunderous punches and maybe getting a KO. Now, I lean towards Van to get it on the cards due to Royval seeming to have a good chin and, been fighting in the UFC now for a long time at a high level and going rounds with high level elite competition. But I don't think he keeps up with the Van pace in this 3-rounder either. 3-round fight also kind of pushes me more so towards Van, especially Van, who showed us he can start fast against Bruno Silva. A big gripe with Joshua Van's earlier run this year was he was starting a bit too slow. Against Bruno Silva is the complete opposite. He nearly got a first-round knockout. Royval is going to be in danger of getting caught with big shots and put away. I do think the toughness could keep him in it, but there's a real possibility that Brandon Royval is caught with big shots and knocked out, though I lean towards the side of this fight potentially going over 2.5 rounds because, you look at Brandon Royval's resume, it's not like he's a chinny fighter, right? You look, he was, stopped by Moreno, but it was the shoulder separated. It's not like he's been KO'd with punches on the feet ever, right? It's like durability and Brandon Royval seem to go hand in hand, but that doesn't mean he's not getting outstruck in a back and forth 3-rounder. I think that's exactly what's going to happen. Joshua Van to win with Ilia Topuria. Now, do I have to explain myself further with Topuria? If you guys know the take, you already know. I think that his boxing is going to be way too sharp for Charlie O, especially a 35-year-old Charlie O. And it's not that 35 is old. There's 35-year-olds that are still competing at a high level, and I think Charlie O still competes at a high level, but I think Topuria's dynamic punching game, similar to how I'm explaining Van, but with more power and precision and more proven with an ability to get KOs, I think Charles is getting dropped, man. We've seen Oliveira show great recovery, but he gets knocked down a lot. And I've always said this, a willingness to follow Charles Oliveira to the ground is his worst nightmare. A puncher who can also grapple, worst nightmare. We saw Makhachev drop him and then submit him. I think Topuria is live to drop him and actually put him away with a violent knockout. Possibility, could Topuria club and sub? Of course, right? It's MMA. Shit can go all different directions. But I think Topuria's main goal with this fight is to separate Charles Oliveira from consciousness with punches and get a scintillating KO. There's a clear gap in defensive strike ability. Ilia Topuria, I'd say, is sharper with his blocks, parries, and even his head movement. Oliveira is very dynamic with, a fun striking style and explosive attack. And sure, he has some power. It's not like he doesn't have a nasty check hook, and he can explode with the straight right. But I think Topuria is too schooled with the hands and too efficient with the grappling game too, especially defensively, that I expect Oliveira to get caught with a big shot and put away. I've watched Oliveira's whole career, man. I've been a Charlie O OG. I was watching the featherweight run when he was, looking like a gleaming star to watch and then kind of fizzling out and seeming like a journeyman to then his rise again and becoming lightweight champion. But I think those best performances are behind him. And I think regardless of, even if this was the absolute peak of Charles Oliveira, which I'm not sure that it is, but let's say that it is, I still believe Ilia Topuria beats the best Charles Oliveira they ever can put in front of him. I think Topuria's special, man. The way he strings his punches together, it's near one of a kind. And he's one of the few in this new generation that has developed this really nasty combination punch ability. Topuria is a scintillating puncher with incredibly proficient boxing skills and a nasty ground game to go alongside of it. I think Topuria could be a pro boxer and thrive, to be honest with you. And I think Charles Oliveira is getting clipped and put away against somebody that I truly believe is going to be the lightweight champ. And we all wanted to see the Makhachev fight, not an impossibility of it ever happening, but this Oliveira fight is like the perfect lightweight fight in the championship challenge, right? He fought against Jai Herbert. I get it. The high kick. I watched the fight. I saw it. For a show, good recovery. I don't think Oliveira's pulling off a miracle here. I think Topuria is taking it home. I'm saying W, KO, and another knockout against an all-time great. Volkanovski, Holloway, and now Oliveira, all wins by KO. Bro, Topuria is a certified Hall of Famer at 28 years of age. This man is special, and I think that he is really right at that brink point of superstardom, right? If you're a hardcore, he's already a star for you. But I think a win here could potentially elevate him to the biggest star in the UFC, or at least damn close to it. I'm going Ilia Topuria. I'm going knockout win. I'm going Topuria, Joshua Van, two-leg parlay, Lock City, Savage Underdog, plus 126. Let's make it a month of undefeated Savage Underdog locks. Let's do it. I'm excited as hell for it. Those are the two money pieces of the Lock City parlay. That's this week's Savage Underdog Lock of the Week. And I want to talk some most confident picks on the card. Now, I will bring them up on screen. And first thing you can see, Ilia Topuria, familiar face. I'm not going to, avoid him from the most confident pick section. He's a most confident pick. I truly have faith in his ability, especially with the punch combinations. I see him winning the fight. I'm going to bring two extra most confident picks up at the end. They're not honorable mentions. They are most confident picks, but I want to leave you guys with a little surprise. Now, next up, this is a new look. Jhonata Diniz. I really think Alvin Hines is kind of low-level heavyweight as far as UFC opposition level does go. I see him as a decent enough, like, pressure brawler wrestler, but nothing tells me he's spectacular in his ability to take fights to the ground, and nothing tells me that he can threaten Diniz on the feet. Stepping into this fight short notice, I mean, he's a tough Minnesota cat, trains with Thomas Peterson. He's a strong dude. He's big, 260 pounds, thick frame, but I watched some of the fights of him outside of the UFC, and I'm like, yeah, he's a decent brawler, but he is about to get lit up on the feet with Diniz. I think of it like this. If Diniz could stay safe in majority of the fight against Carl Williams, who probably shouldn't have been cut from the UFC, to be fair, and get a win in that matchup against a Williams who's a good athletic wrestler, I think that Alvin Hines is probably going to be a sitting duck to power shots. I'm going to say Diniz does get the KO. Now, he's a little bit wide as a favorite around that, minus 330, minus 350 range, but I do think knockout is quite probable for him. The KO is not a great line either at minus 140, which is unfortunate, but I anticipate a fight ending in violence and a badass back and forth one. I think that Diniz is kickboxing background and his precision punching is going to be a big difference maker against Alvin Hines. Now, if Hines has the chin of a lifetime, maybe he absorbs everything, but I believe that he's going to get caught with some thunderous shots and put away. I'm going to say Diniz by knockout. And confident pick, Jhonata Diniz. I'm putting him on the lineup for the big six. Now, next up, Jacobe Smith, specifically by a knockout. Now, I never love, saying, oh, yeah, it's a minus, 350 knockout prop. It's not like I'm crazy about it. You can find it as low as minus 250 if you're on FanDuel. But around the minus 350 range, Jacobe Smith is in like a polar opposite career position than Niko Price. It's a Smith emerging as a legit contender, and it's a Niko Price who's like holding on to the final run. And yeah, he got a nice W against Morono, but he had beaten Morono many years prior. And I don't know, I feel like he's kind of a Morono kryptonite. And it's not like Morono is this hyper elite guy in the division. And then you look, last time Themba Gorimbo bodied him, we saw him knocked out violently in 38 seconds by Robbie Lawler, who I picked as an underdog in that fight. We saw him knocked out by Phil Rowe back in 2022. I guess it's aged kind of well because Phil Rowe just beat Angelusa, and he was my Savage Underdog lock a couple cards ago. I believe we're going to see the Jacobe Smith explosive ability, whether it's a ground and pound stoppage or punches on the feet. I think a knockout's pretty likely here. Niko Price likes to brawl. I see him getting hit. This seems to be like the explosive talent to keep an eye on with Jacobe Smith taking on a Niko Price who, is fun to watch, has a decent brawling stand-up game. At one point, Niko Price was pretty good, but I feel like he's kind of fallen off the horse at this point, and I see him getting chinned here. I'm going Jacobe Smith, violent knockout as a confident pick. Let's keep running through. Next up, I got none other than RoboCop to win. I feel like he's going to be too powerful for Jack Hermansson, especially a Hermansson that has been out for a year and 4 months. Yes, RoboCop had a really disappointing loss not long ago, back in February, to Jared Cannonier, where he was stopped. But ultimately, early in the fight, he looked like a terrifying force, throwing dynamic and explosive punches, rocking and dropping Cannonier on multiple occasions. At the end of the day, in a 3-round fight, RoboCop is a nightmare for a lot of guys in the UFC middleweight division, and especially when you don't have heavy hands. Jack Hermansson, skillful grappler, technical kickboxer, but I'll be damned if we're calling Jack Hermansson heavy-handed. All of his knockouts are ground and pound. I don't think he's taken RoboCop to the ground. He's had a big difference in physicality. And as far as the striking goes, I think RoboCop hits him with thunderous shots, landing more power to Hermansson, working more of a technical game. But I think RoboCop's size gives him the ability to walk a Hermansson down, throw hard shots at him. And I know some people are like, oh, well, Hermansson beat Pyfer. To be fair, though, it was a 5-round fight against Pyfer. And early in the fight, Pyfer was looking quite good, right? A 3-round fight for RoboCop against a Hermansson who hasn't fought in a year and 4 months, especially with the high-level grappling game. So a limited threat of Hermansson getting this fight to the ground. I don't see it. Physicality edge RoboCop, power edge RoboCop. I see RoboCop nabbing a decision here. Now, Hermansson has been knocked out a couple of times, but normally does eat a good punch. Could RoboCop get the KO? Maybe, but I'm not crazy about calling the KO. The official lean, I do go towards decision or knockout. Minus 220 range for RoboCop to win it. Not a great line, but I do think he pulls through. Rodriguez to win on the judges' scorecards up at plus 250, which, ultimately could be a little bit sweaty because RoboCop could drop Hermansson and potentially put him away. I like the chances, though, of RoboCop on the money line as far as a confident pick goes. If you're looking to more, chase odds or maybe do a prop parlay, we're having a different conversation. And that type of conversation we'll save for the Degen Props and parlay sections at the end. I think we're going to see Gregory Rodriguez outwork Jack Hermansson, land big shots, push him backwards, and make him uncomfortable with his heavy-handed attack. I'm going with RoboCop. I think he's still pretty good. I think he looked nice against Jared Cannonier, regardless of the L at the end, and I think he can improve off that performance. He said he's going to be a bit more patient, but I do expect some explosive onslaughts at certain points in the fight, which separate the two of them. Heavier, significant shots causing more damage for RoboCop. I think that's the key. All right, so those are the early big four, all right? Let me bring up the next two, all right? We got a familiar face. Of course, Joshua Van, we already talked about in the Lock City Parlay section. You think he's just in the Lock City Parlay and he's not a confident pick? And he's a money lineable, minus 120 line. If you're interested in throwing down on him, you can just touch that fight straight and you can play it. If you're like, yo, I don't want to put him in a parlay with Topuria for whatever reason, maybe you're Charlie O fanatic and you don't want to go against him, but you still agree with my Van call. Well, slight favorite status towards Van, essentially an even money fight, and I see a clear path to victory. Joshua Van to get it done, confident. Now, the next one that you see there, T-Rex Terrence McKinney, which I sat on before pulling the trigger on bringing him in, but I felt like Terrence McKinney to beat Slava Claus just makes too much sense to me. McKinney should have a clear-cut grappling advantage by a fairly substantial margin. On top of that, he's an explosive athlete with heavy hands, and I get it. Outside of round one, McKinney's falling apart. But I think he beats Slava, man. Slava's 8-5-1. He's a decent kickboxer, but it's not like he's knocking everybody out. He doesn't have the heaviest hands. It's just McKinney has a habit of fumbling the bag, but something tells me McKinney's going to thrive on the pay-per-view. Terrence McKinney burst on the scene super quick, all right? Off rip, looked like a future contender, and then started taking L's and, not thriving nearly as well as was, initially hoped for or anticipated. But I don't think we should write him off in a matchup against a Slava Claus. I think this is kind of a perfect level fight for him. I see Terrence McKinney with a big edge on the ground. I think he can take this fight to the ground. I think he could actually finish with ground and pound, potentially a submission, because McKinney's got dangerous sub threats, but he is a heavy-handed guy. And from top position and a big athleticism difference, I think Slava might be getting pulverized. I'm going McKinney to win around minus 164. I think inside distance makes sense at minus 145, but the odds aren't worth chasing it for only a 20-point difference. And then if you want to go the knockout prop, which is a possibility, you're sitting around the plus 180 range. I favor the side of McKinney getting this thing done early. I expect him to stop Slava Claus. Though Slava's a sharp striker, I think McKinney could hurt him with punches. We saw Chase Hooper drop Slava, regardless of, oh, well, Chase Hooper's nasty jits. Yeah, but Terrence McKinney has good ground skills too. McKinney's made some mistakes and fumbled the bag, but he normally looks really good in the first. And I think it could only take a round and he could get Slava out of there. I'm going to go with the freak athlete. I'm going to go with Terrence McKinney, the OG hype train that is, kind of fizzled out as of recent. I think he's got some good performances left. I feel like it's not career over for Terrence McKinney. I think that he beats a guy in Slava who has a clear gap in his abilities to grapple. Regardless of how long he's been with Team Alpha Male, the ground skills is still a gleaming and glaring weakness in his arsenal. And I think Terrence McKinney's a very strong grappler when need be. And I would anticipate him throwing heavy shots and then taking this fight to the ground. And I could see him locking up a choke or finishing the fight with ground and pound. I'm going Terrence McKinney to get the finish here. And he's a confident pick as well. Now, those are the 6 most confident picks on the card. But we do have the dog section to talk about. So let's jump to the favorite underdogs. And this week, the underdog lines are not necessarily my favorite as opposed to what I can make happen with slight plus money in the 2-leg parlays, So parlays are more intriguing to me, but I still have 2 underdogs. I'll bring them up on the screen. We got Araujo, big dog, plus 220, and Dariush. Let's first talk Araujo. I expect a back and forth close fight with Tracy Cortez. I could see kind of either one of them getting it on the cards. I feel like it's a 50-50. But the reason I'm going Araujo is the momentum of that big fraud check over Corinne Silva. She's pretty explosive. She's, I would say, relatively good at grappling with decent enough takedown threats. And Cortez, not that impressive. I know she got the win against Jazz Davicius, doing a bit more damage, even though she was out wrestled a bit. But every time I watch Tracy, I'm waiting for the moment of why she has hype. And then I realize it's the lashes, as one got knocked off by Thug Rose. She's got the beauty effect, bamboozling the betting lines and having her at minus 260. How I would do the odds on this fight would be minus 110, okay? Because I see this as a 50-50 matchup. At open, Tracy Cortez was minus 205. I don't think she deserves that tag. The argument you can make towards Tracy, which I think is a fair assessment, is the youth factor being younger. But Araujo is not showing signs of slowing down. She's not a typical 38-year-old. I feel like she can get a competitive win. Now, ultimately, I think this fight going over 2.5 would make a ton of sense. If you want to go fight ends in a split decision at plus 250, that's fair. I'm excited to consider that Araujo spread. We'll talk the spread right now because it's available. Normally, we wait till Friday, but for the pay-per-views, I got you early. Minus 180. I think Araujo can make this within the point margin. I could see a split. I could see 29-28s across the board. If Tracy Cortez goes out there and pitches a shutout, that's like a breakout performance because I don't know, man. I'm not sold on Cortez. Am I so confident that Cortez beats Corinne Silva? And then you say, oh, well, Araujo got fucked up by Natalia Silva. Natalia Silva's fucking everybody up right now, and she should be fighting for the belt next. So I think Araujo's a live underdog at plus 220. If you're looking for a female dog to chase, the women's fights are where the weird shit happens. I'm going to go with the underdog in Araujo. Now, next up, Dariush. Bro, give me the coin. Where is it? Flip it. Heads and tails. Why am I going Dariush? Because let's say Dariush still has steam. Wrestling advantage, okay? And I actually will argue that the southpaw boxing and the, kind of snappy overhands that he'll rip out and the combinations he can throw at times should be better than Moicano's stand-up game. And I am a believer in Moicano. I picked him against Benoit Saint-Denis when everybody said Saint-Denis was going to slaughter him. Now, to be fair, he looked amazing on the ground in that fight and then got a doctor's stoppage. But there was moments in that second round where we saw Benoit Saint-Denis start to have a bit of striking success. Unfortunately, fight stopped. His face was too pulverized. It couldn't continue. I'll say this. Renato Moicano is in a fight where he's not going to have a jiu-jitsu advantage, and that's normally where he thrives the most, is an ability to out-grapple people. I have a very hard time seeing Moicano taking down Dariush and dominating him on the floor. I think as far as wrestling goes, I favor Dariush. As far as boxing, I'm favoring Dariush. Now, pure jiu-jitsu, Dariush is a high-level grappler as well, man. He's got good jiu-jitsu skills. I'm going to go Dariush to nab this one out on the scorecards. Plus 100 for Dariush, the over 2.5 minus 115, and then Dariush to get it done by a decision is plus 275. The argument on Dariush is the rumblings of him retiring, but then, I'm hearing things about Moicano opening up a new gym and whatnot. It's a lot of behind-the-scenes shit. But when you look at it fight for fight, the Moicano wants money Moicano, who fought against Makhachev or who was fighting against Dariush originally on that card, is a Moicano I was leaning towards in close fashion. I still was worried about the fight because Dariush is criminally underrated. But now he lost for the title. He's made his money. I don't know. The rumblings of Dariush retiring after, never a good call. Now, as far as, betting down the underdogs, am I going to say that either one of these two underdogs are like the greatest dog bets ever? Fuck no. That's why neither of them are my savage underdog lock. And instead, I went for a 2-leg plus money parlay for the underdog lock. But I still feel as though there are pathways to victory for Dariush and for Viviane Araujo. I think that we're going to see a competitive, hard-fought win for Dariush. But if his chin is gone, he's been violently KO'd back-to-back. But Oliveira, Sarukian, elite guys, top 5 at the worst, right? They could be top 4, both of them top 3. And one of them could potentially be number 1 here soon with Oliveira fighting for the belt and, Sarukian, the backup, and probably pretty close to getting himself a title shot if he can get back in the good graces of the UFC by making weight this weekend. I'm going to say Dariush by a bit. Dariush by a bit. I don't see Moicano as elite. Dariush had an amazing win streak going. Even though he's lost to 2 of the top contenders, it's like I don't know. He's got something to prove still. And Moicano's a winnable fight for Dariush. Moicano, he beats Jalen Turner after getting badly rocked, right? He's able to outwork, Drew Dober in a 3-round fight. Those are fights where he's got clear grappling edge. Even the BSD doctor stoppage, clear grappling edge. Not here. I think Moicano can struggle with Benny Dariush and potentially Dariush being slept on bad. I'm picking him as an underdog. Now, those are my favorite underdogs on the card. I do want to glance over some of the Degen props, so let's jump to the section and let's have, a nice proper discussion. So, first thing I want to mention is the over 2.5s. Now, there are 2 over 2.5s that I think are fairly live here. Over 2.5 in the Royval Van fight, but it's a sweaty one because Van does have explosive power and maybe he gets the KO. Minus 215, I think it's viable. On the opposite end, more of a confident over 2.5 between the ladies. Minus 600 over 2.5 in the Araujo and Cortez fight. And if you want to be a Degen, you could have went for fight ends in a split decision at plus 400 a couple days ago. Now it's plus 250, which is not nearly as exciting. So, kind of lost the thunder on that. Now, as far as some degeneracy, I was like, where can I find a Degen line? Felipe Lima by sub, not a lock call, not an extreme confidence call, but a possibility. Around plus 500, I think Lima is live to submit Peyton Talbot. So it's a must mention, but it's not a go out and bet it now unless you're like, yo, I'm chasing odds. Okay, then you can go for it. Now, as far as the KO props are going, I already talked Jacobe Smith by knockout as a confident pick. You guys know I'm thinking he gets it done around minus 350. Topuria by knockout makes a ton of sense to me. I do think Ilia Topuria is stopping Charles Oliveira with the fist. Minus 150 for the knockout prop. That's not crazy. He's got 25 minutes to do it. I think he's knocking out Charlie O. And I like that prop, to be honest, especially in a 2-leg parlay. And then Diniz to get the KO makes a lot of sense to me, but it's another one where it's like, odds are kind of ugly here, minus 165. I'm like, I got to find these folks some plus money with this section. Well, what about this? McKinney by knockout, ground and pound, potentially, plus 180 if you need plus money. If you need to throw it down on the props, I like the money lines way more. I like the overs way more. Okay, besides that Topuria knockout, I think that does hit. And I got to tell you guys, I like the parlays so much more. So that kind of just leads me into the segue. We got to talk about my favorite section, your favorite section. It's everybody's favorite section. Let's talk the parlays to play for UFC 317. Now, make sure you guys hit the likes too. And if you're new to the channel, you like what you're hearing, subscribe. I do it every single week. This week's best MMA bets. At the top, safe but boring. I think Diniz and Topuria both win around minus 165. If this doesn't come through, I would be relatively surprised. Like if Hines somehow beats Diniz, a Diniz who was looking good on the feet against Tybura and then got beat by a nasty jiu-jitsu black belt on the ground, and Alvin Hines beats him. That's the tragic downfall. And then as far as Topuria, I think he's the future face of the UFC. So you guys know my takes with that one. Safe, but boring, should hit. Now, if you want to go over 2.5 and you want to touch Van Royval, Cortez Araujo, I'm telling you, you might sweat on Van Royval, and it's not as confident as Cortez Araujo, and that's why one's a 6-1, one's a 2-1. You got minus 150 for both overs. Something just worth mentioning. Now, if you like a live play, Topuria and the Van Royval over 2.5, if maybe you're not like me, you're not a Van's witness, you're not sure, but you're thinking this fight goes long, maybe you think Royval out-grapples him, takes him down, and gets it on the cards, then this live play might be for you at minus 128. Now, next up, I would say there's a probable line, another one where it's like you're feeling like Royval might out-grapple Van, but I do think Van could land thunderous shots and Royval's chin holds up. I respect Royval a lot. I've picked him as an underdog. I had him against Tyra. It's not like I'm a guy who overlooks Brandon Royval, okay? But I do believe that the over 2.5 and the Smith KO minus 117 is probable, but it's boring the shit out of me seeing favorite status. I want to jump to some plus money. We got Lock City. You already know about it. I started the show with Lock City. Plus 125, plus 126 range for Topuria and Van. Money call. Money call. Solid 3-legger. All right, let's bring 3 down. Topuria, the Van Royval over 2.5 and McKinney at plus 183. I do think it's pretty solid. It's one of those where if you believe in the side of Van and you're a Joshua Van's witness like I am, then you could throw him on the lineup too and get plus 260. But I guess I kind of put that out there for the people that seem to be in the middle because, you know, I like to give you guys the templates to work with so we're not just all in disagreement on everything. So I can have, you know, people find some middle ground almost with some of these parlays. I think plus 183 for the 3-legger, but it's plus 260 if you just want to play Van. Next up, Topuria, Rodriguez, and McKinney. I think the big 3 are hitting at plus 201. I say pretty likely. Topuria, Diniz, and Smith, all to win by knockout. You believe in the big 3 knockout props? Plus 294. Now, to keep it moving, a little alternate 4-legger. Pantoja, who wasn't in the most confident picks, but I have as a pick. Lima, who wasn't in the most confident picks, but I have as a pick. Rodriguez and Diniz, some Brazilian badasses, all 4 of them. Plus 327. The Brazilians, you guys will be happy, all right? Even though Charlie O is going to take a fat L at the end, all right? Love to Charlie O, but he's taking a loss. At least you'll have some great success throughout the card. Keep moving down. Quality, I think it is. Van, Diniz, McKinney, and then the Cortez Araujo over 2.5 rounds, plus 338. I think this one's pretty good. I think this one's pretty live. I'd say it's quality for a reason. Now, big 4, bro, all right? We're broing it up. It's bro-tastic. The Van Royval and the Cortez Araujo over 2.5s with Topuria, Rodriguez, and McKinney. So a little 3-leg savagery, all right? A little three-leg savage call with Topuria, Rodriguez, and McKinney, which you see as the big 3 with the 2 overs hitting, plus 401. I think it's live. Now, for some solid money at plus 477, you got to play a prop. It's McKinney knockout with the Lock City parlay of Topuria and Van at plus 477. You want to chase extra plus? You don't want to throw more heat down at some closer lines? That's up to you. Pretty solid down at plus 601. Again, it's the overs, Van Royval, Cortez Araujo, with the Smith knockout, with Terrence McKinney, with RoboCop, and with Ilia Topuria getting it done. Now, a savage play down below. All right. It's that same lineup from the one above. Okay. But instead of just, you know, taking it easy, you're throwing the hammer down and you're adding in Diniz to get it done. You got to have some faith in a heavyweight kickboxer, but I think he can beat a heavyweight LFA brawler, to be honest with you guys. And then to keep moving, Savage 3-leg, Van by decision, which is sweaty because Van has power, but the Royval chin is why I respect it. Lima by sub, which is nerve-wracking because Peyton Talbot, nasty prospect, but he just get grapple-fucked terribly last fight, and I could see Lima with a rear naked, and Topuria by KO, which I feel really good about, plus 2,988 for the Savage 3-leg. And then to keep it moving, the Degen Savage, right at the bottom, the lottery ticket, the chase for the month's rent when you don't have cash. Plus 3,664. Topuria, Smith by KO, Diniz by KO, McKinney KO, RoboCop decision, the over in the Van Royval fight and Cortez Araujo fight. Plus 3,644 if you want to be a menace to society, because that's just kind of how that one feels. It feels menace to society like. Now, for those that don't just screenshot and bail, sneaky, type sneaky in the comments. I appreciate you guys who stick around. I wanted to concoct a little bit more of a heat and play off of that Degen Savage call, but I want to take it a step further, okay? So we go Ilya Topuria on your lineup. We're going Joshua Van. Fuck just going for the over. We're putting Van on the lineup as I'm talking with a damn accent. I don't know what's happening over here. I'm slurring my words. Smith by knockout. You got to have faith, but I'm telling you, I think he handles, all right? And to keep it running some more, fucking Diniz by KO as I'm starting to sweat. I won't lie to you guys. I'm getting nervous, but I'm telling you, I think it's live to hit. Plus 623 with those ones, right? Then we've got McKinney. Let's believe. Let's have some faith that McKinney is decent and not just, you know, a complete fraud on his way out. He knocks out Slava Claus potentially with ground and pound. And then you're thinking, yo, RoboCop's got big hands, but Jacobe has got a solid enough chin. RoboCop on the cards. Now you got to sweat heavy because if he gets a knockout, you're going to be kicking yourself. But it is what it is because we're chasing plus money. All right. And the over in the Cortez Araujo fight plus 6,918 for what I'm going to call the true Degenist of Degen lotto ticket down at the bottom. All right. We're taking it a step further. I had to go crazy. It's literally prop central over here. I'm sweating a bit. Plus 6,918 for that leg. I'll show you guys on the screen real quick. Let me bring this bad boy up. I got it hidden. I got it hidden, chat, but I'll show you. Bam, right around there. Plus 6,918. And I want to bring you guys simply just one more. One more because I'm going to do it as a disgusting play. This is disgusting. I'm disgusted. I'm disgusted with myself. But no, I'm actually kind of like, wait, can we do it? Plus 45,518. We're going to call this the life changer for some. Now, obviously, I will be the Mystic Mac of all Macs if this is to come through. But I don't feel like it's far-fetched. I think it's possible. I think it's probable. And I think for a plus 45,518, those are some sweet odds for some shit that I see coming to fruition. So there it is for you guys. The truest of degeneracy. For those that stick around, you get the sneakiest of the most savage as far as the parlays go, all right? I got you guys covered. I got you guys covered. That's the lineup. Those are the parlays. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. Let me know of the parlays what you think. Lock City, of course. I want to hear. Are you guys with me? Are we tailing? Are you guys blindly tailing? Now, I have to say it, especially on a pay-per-view week. Don't blindly tail. Do your own research. See where your research lines up with mine, especially if you're throwing down serious capital. Now, if you're just throwing a couple bucks down, different conversation, you're having some fun, you're throwing some Degen parlays together. But if you're serious with throwing heat down, you should be putting your brain on, all right, doing your research and matching it with mine because, you know, 2 is better than 1, they say. But I think we're on to something. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling loose. I'm feeling limber. I'm feeling excited. I feel ready to shadow box it up on stream right now. Oh, my gosh, or on video, I should say. I feel like I'm still in a live stream. W to the people. W in the comments. If you got nothing to say, or even if you have something to say, still give me a W. Let me know what you thought. Give me your favorite, either plus money 2-leg parlay, or, you know, if you have a lock 3-leg, God bless you. Let me know if you got a Savage Underdog lock money line that you like instead of the Savage Underdog Lock City parlay. I want to hear from you guys. Drop your most confident picks, drop your favorite bets, and let me know what you thought of the video in the comments down below. Smash the likes on your way out. If you're new, subscribe it up. Keep it locked in. I got daily content. All right? You can catch me every single day. Videos, live streams, and more. So keep it locked in on the channel. W to the community. Thank you, guys. I love you, Savages. All right? Turn the post notifications on. Don't just leave them on personalized. Put them on all. You don't want to miss a video or live stream. I'll be live for the whole card. So you guys can come sweat out the savagery with me this Saturday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern time. Don't miss the fight companion. I'm bringing the thunder. And if you really enjoyed the content, maybe you got some buddies that like the UFC. Maybe your grandma's a fan. I don't know. Somebody's a fan. Share the video. Send them a link. Say, yo, check this guy out. I appreciate you all. Much love to the people. Another beautiful episode of this week's best MMA bets in the books. And I'll see you all in the next one. Peace out.